Recording has started.
Okay, we will call things to order at 2:03 for the Retirement Board for Center County. Seeing no public comment, we will look to approve the minutes from the February 16th meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes.
So moved with some very, very minor corrections.
So Jason moved it. Would you be willing to second?
Sure.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes, but all right, so changes. Yes, Colleen.
Just tiny little grammatical things. In the call to order, there's an extra comma around my name that's been writing like the last few minutes. And I don't mean like minutes in time, I mean minutes as in meeting minutes. And under meeting minutes, there's a highlight at Commissioner Higgins that's been writing the last few minutes documents too, just to clean them up.
Any objection to these these
None.
irregularities?
Oh, I'm going to lose my highlight.
You are. I'm going to lose my comma.
You could vote against it.
No, it's
It's just
okay.
these meetings aren't fun.
Okay. All right. So we have those suggested corrections. Anybody opposed to including them into this motion? Jason, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. All of those in favor of amending and approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Okay. All right. We have no correspondence, but we do have the RFP in front of us. So
Yes.
we and just to clarify, or the way that we were doing this in terms of opening them up was because sometimes we do RFPs at a commissioners meeting. We didn't really open these in a way yet. Did we have to do that, or what was the reason behind us not going through that process?
We didn't have to because it's not for a commissioners meeting. It's not it doesn't need to be open at a public meeting. And that was something I did clarify with some of the other counties' retirement boards that did go through this process.
Okay.
As long as we, which we did have included in the RFP, we did specifically note that they would not be opened at a public meeting as well. Obviously, for commissioners meetings and for those contracts and for RFPs and stuff, that's a different process. But because this was through the retirement board, and we noted it in the RFP, we did not need to do that publicly. Did I lose audio?
Yep, we have the RFP. Jason, what do you think? How would you like to proceed?
So, as you all know, the last meeting, which was on the 16th, extra comma and highlight and all, we discussed how we would review the RFPs, the scoring matrix for that, and then everybody's results were due back to me, and then I would kind of aggregate those scores, and I can either read down each proposer's total score, which is I calculate out to a percentage, or I can give you the top three. We had, just for reference, we had three that scored over 90%. Everyone else was under 90%. And most of that was a mix in the 80s, a couple in the 70s, and a couple in the 60s as well. So just I can read them all if everybody wants to know how kind of everyone scored out as far as each of the companies and the proposers, or I can just give you the top three, and then we can decide from there how we want to proceed with those from at that point.
Sure. You wouldn't happen to be, or do you have a screen share that you could maybe do so we could see it? Is that okay, or would you rather not do that at this point?
I could. It's kind of messy.
Well, then no, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay. Just because I didn't clean it up just yet, other than get the scores and stuff in there.
Maybe we start with the top three and go from there.
Okay, so and I'll work from the bottom of those three up to the top score if that would make sense for everybody. So,
If I could just interject real quick. I was just going to say it might be nice to have the scores read into the record. I don't know how you guys feel about that or not.
All the scores?
I don't know what other people think about that.
in terms of just you just mean like the not like every single column, just the totals with everybody.
Right, just their
Oh, yeah.
percentage score.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
if you want, okay.
yeah.
If you want, I'll just go alphabetical then at that point and read every company's score.
And then we
This
can
would
kind of revisit the top scores.
Sure, and this would be alpha. So this would be the same way you saw them in the spreadsheet itself. So
Okay.
we had Andco at 88.6%, Aon at 80.6%, Clearstead at 72%, Cornerstone at 88.6%, DeHaab Associates at 74.6%, Gallagher Benefit Services at 68%, Investment Performance Services at 62.6%, Marquette Associates at 91.3%, Centurion / Marsh McLennan Agency at 82%, PFM at 97.3%, SEI Institutional Group at 70.6%, the Hazori Group at Morgan Stanley 72.6%, Vanguard at 92%, and Wilshire Consulting at 76.6%. And then,
Thank you for that.
yep. And then just to recap, so then the top three were Marquette Associates at 91.3%, Vanguard at 92%, and PFM at 97.3%.
Okay. So I'm just trying to.
And honestly, I'm going to defer a little bit, probably to the commissioners, a little bit on this discussion, just for next step as far as now we know the top three, kind of where does it move from there with usual RFPs and that sort of thing. So I know that we can have a discussion around some of this, but actual progression steps, which I can also reach out to Natalie on as well. But I was working on getting all this together that I haven't quite moved into that phase yet.
So top three again: PFM, Marquette, and Vanguard.
Correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any hesitance about those, or would like to discuss those? I'll say that from my standpoint, that's who I had as my top three.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought that Centurion, if you would put them, for me, they were like the best value, I thought. I'm going to their score here. Yeah, I thought that they were 40,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that they were one of the, probably the least expensive per year, and I thought that they weren't they had a decent score from my standpoint. So I kind of put them in a best value, but I would wholeheartedly agree with those top three of Vanguard, PFM, and Marquette as being the sort of the A list or the A team, without a doubt. Now we pay a little bit more for them, but they are certainly, they've got their stuff together there. So
Yeah, and I think where they won out was they even scored high on the price component, but that I think was because we were balancing that against the other categories. So they were scoring high in all the other categories. So that comparison was being made that the price was worth it for the services provided. Because they did, while higher in costs, they did score consistently higher, even in the cost categories. So
right.
Again, that was that comparison. So, and I would agree with you, Centurion was probably the best value of all of them, I think. Again, these three really did come in, and you see, obviously PFM came in at the highest, even 5% above the other two, but they did actually get so they certainly came in pretty good there as well. But these three consistently were the top, obviously. But by and large, by a lot. I mean, they consistently had scored high on everybody's sheet that we had, and the other ones were really kind of all over the board. Some people had them scored low on categories and then high. Another person had some of the other companies scored high, and so there was really a lot more inconsistency among the other companies. But these three really were most consistently scored.
And
If
then,
I could ask, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
nope, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, Marquette Associates is not a company that I'm familiar with by reputation, and so I didn't know if anyone had some just sort of personal thoughts or experiential thoughts about that particular company.
Yeah, so the way that I know Marquette is through CCAP. They will often do things through CCAP, sponsor things, or have one of their reps there for
Sure.
conferences. But they will also do an annual report, which they included. They included their 2020, or I'm sorry, their 2019 version in the RFP they put in. But they do that every
Mhm.
year, and they survey counties across the Commonwealth, and typically get a really, really good response rate. And so it's one of those. It's sort of like a free thing they do, but obviously it's a sales pitch that they can sort of.
Sure.
But
Good
from that,
example.
yeah, but from that standpoint, they've always been a really they kind of they know county governments and know what they're thinking and how they approach things and their different methodology. That was one of the first places I think that when we were having this 7.5 and 7.25% conversation
Mhm.
about rates,
Yep.
that people who are proponents of it would say, look, we've got to start to notice that now the majority of counties are entering into a below 7.5 rate. So they obviously have they do a lot of statistical analysis of where counties are at
Hmm.
throughout the state. So that's how I would
Kind
know
of
them.
trend analysis.
Yes, yes, yep, and peer comparisons. So
Hmm.
yeah, yep,
Thank you.
yep.
Thank you. That's helpful.
I believe they do sponsorships with papers as well. Although I haven't had any much direct contact with them. I think I've had a few calls or emails from them over the year or so, but that's how I kind of know them too.
So, Mike, you had something you were going to say, and I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It just was more of just a kind of I wanted to hold off until we saw all the scores come in for the top three. But one of the things that I was noticing, and again, this was, we all reviewed the RFP before it went out, so I didn't catch it before, and I wish I had. I don't think it makes too much of a difference at this point because of our top three all answered it correctly, in my opinion. But on attachment G, which is the cost submittal, the way that the breakdown for the base period option one and option two in terms of year one and year two, the way that was written out could potentially have been confusing for certain entities, or they may not have answered it correctly. But looking at Marquette, so Marquette would be the only one that I'd be concerned about the way that they score theirs. PFM scored it, I think, correctly, and so did Vanguard. Well, even Vanguard, I think Vanguard has an issue with how they scored it. So let me take that back. My apologies. And the real difference, or the thing with this, is the base period for cost is 33 months, April 1 of this year until December 31st of 2023. So it's 33 months. Proposal option year one is just a year. And one of the things that, again, this was transposing of the years, but the way it's written in attachment G is January 1st, 2025 through December 31st of 2024. So, and we all know it was meant to be January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. So basically just that, it's a 1 year, 1 year. But if you look at PFM's cost submittal, they do 275 for that first base period, and then 100,000 for each of the other years, which makes sense. They're basically saying every year is about 100,000. The base period is 2.75 years, which would equal 275,000. But Marquette and Vanguard and many others, the way that they answered it, if you go to Marquette's, is Marquette has 95,000 for every block, but they don't have anything about it being an annual cost. Some do have it in there where it's like, for example, Centurion had it where it was an annual cost every year. Centurion said 40,000 per year, meaning that they probably would be closer to 100,000, a little bit over for their base period, but they didn't explicitly say that total. Anyway, so I don't know if we need to go back, because I don't think if we go to Vanguard or Marquette and we say you said 95,000 in that block for 33 months, it's that's how it. I'm thinking that they thought it's per year, so I think it's one of the. My only suggestion is before we move forward with maybe talking with these entities about moving forward in some way, shape, or form, we should probably clarify what the total cost for each of their years is. And it could just be, did you mean to say 95,000 per year? Did you actually mean to say 95,000 for those 33 months? Or was there, in light of this, do you have a new total? And I think so. I just think we should talk about that before we move forward.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think if the board would like me to, I'm happy to reach out to those three entities and the contacts there to get clarification from PFM, Marquette, and Vanguard. Again, we think PFM did it correctly, but I think if we want to move forward with reaching out to Marquette and Vanguard, that we do all three, since they are the top three, just to confirm that they're all submitting information on with the same understanding. I will say, I believe in the cost submittal instructions earlier on in the actual RFP packet, it does explain what those categories should be. So even if the year wasn't listed there, they should have known that it was, the first one was for a 33-month period, the other two for 12-month periods. But that being said, it could be somebody else doing the cost submittal component of it versus the rest of the RFP information that they're providing, or the proposal information that they're providing. So I think that's something that we should be cognizant of and aware. And I would say it's worth reaching out to the three. But if we do reach out to the two, we should do all three, I guess, is what my point is.
Yeah, at least confirm with PFM what they intended to make sure that it's correct. Yeah, because it's the only way for us to compare apples to apples. Otherwise, we don't know exactly what we're comparing. So, yeah, if you could do that, please, that'd be great.
Yeah, that sounds good. I had felt that two of the stronger applications were from PFM and Vanguard, and then there were several I felt were rather on the weak side, but they're not on our short list. So I'm okay with what we've got so far.
And of course, I would do that individually. I would not send a mass email to those three. Just to be clear.
And let's see here. I'm just looking through. The one thing that and there also was this non-discretionary and discretionary option that was included in the RFP. Mm-hmm. And the way that PFM answered the question is, they gave us two cost submittals, and the 275 for the base period, and then 100,000 for each of the optional years. That is for their non-discretionary. So that's where we would still keep our money managers, and then they would be advising us, on those. But then they do also provide the invest, so where they would actually invest the money for us. And that was about $200,000 a year for the optional years, but then their base period years $400,000. So, just to note that investment consultant, and I just want to be clear, that's what that is, correct? So when we're looking at, you go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, so first, Marquette also did do separate costs for both types of services. And I believe Vanguard did too, but
yes,
or broke it out on the line. So just to clarify, so the traditional investment consultant versus OCIO. Traditional investment consultant would come back to the retirement board and say, here's what I think you should do. You all need to take a vote now. You need to make this decision and take a vote and pass it and make it happen. Whereas with the OCIO model, we would say to the OCIO, here's our top line, what we want to be at, what our percentages are, what our investment policy says, where we want to be. And the OCIO is given the discretion to make those decisions without specific approval of the retirement board. And of course, the thing that ties them to accountability is the fact that we can cancel the contract at any time, and we can terminate that contract and move on to somebody else, cancel the, or stop having an OCIO service or whatever it might be. So it is one. We still retain all of the specific decision-making powers, whereas in the other one, we do delegate that to whoever we bring on board.
Got it.
Under the parameters we decide.
Right.
So they may very well change investment managers or adapt who holds what equities or fixed assets and that sort of thing. But at the end of the or fixed income. But at the end of the day, they're the ones making some of those decisions with our input and guidance. But they're the ones kind of pulling the signing off and that sort of thing.
Right. The idea is to make our retirement account more flexible and responsive to markets as they change, right?
Yeah, because they would be able to respond in real time rather than wait till the next retirement board meeting to respond to something that happened a month ago. They would be able to make those decisions, that day in the day, or the fall, whatever's next day, kind of stuff to adapt to changing market conditions. So, for example, last March, when the market started tanking, they would have had the discretion if they thought they needed to pull something out of one of the investment managers, maybe make that $1 million investment from transfer some of those funds from CS McKee from the international to domestic. They would have been able to do that day rather than wait for us to meet a retirement board meeting.
Okay. And then, so I think, so just that we're clear on those different kind of costs, so we're all on the same page. But the scores you read, Jason, are not based on cost at this. They were just, we had the line items for each of the 7 or so scores, but you did not factor in the acceptable or unacceptable price in the scores, or did you?
I did.
You did? Okay.
Yes. So what I did was, and I probably should have explained that better. So what I did was I took the last two categories that were factored at 10% of the total weighted score, or of the total score, sorry. And I took the cost category and assigned unacceptable to 1, acceptable to 5, reassigned, so put a number value to those, and then combine those last two columns of scores together, put them in half, and average them out. So if the cost isn't factored into it at its 10% value of the total score for the RFP.
Okay. If they would come back, and I'm just looking at
I would be able to show.
Yeah.
I would be able to show how that was all calculated and figured out, and what everybody's individual scoring was in all of those areas. That's more of what I have to clean up now, because I was working on that spreadsheet and putting it together, but I just haven't cleaned up the sheet. But I have it clearly defined and broken out on what means what and where it's combined in, and how it factors into the total percentage.
Okay.
But that was considered, because everybody did submit a rating for cost, so it was appropriate to include it.
Okay. And I don't think it would have changed. I had them all acceptable, the costs acceptable, provided that they were an annual cost. So it wouldn't change anything for me if they would come back and say, I took, like, for example, for Marquette, I took it as $95,000 per year.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take it as $95,000 per 33 months. Same thing with Vanguard as well. I think the only thing with Vanguard is that they make a note that they would do the custodial fees would be. I'm sorry. Yeah, just to clarify with Vanguard, they're talking about $158 and $600, and then management fees are also there. It's a total of the custodial and the management there, correct? They're not saying it would be $300,000.
No. I don't.
Okay.
No, that's not how I read it. No.
Okay.
But again, if we're gonna, if we do decide, or we have decided that I'll reach out to those three, then we'll clear all of those three up on that, and then we can bring all three back to the table and decide and see if anything's changed, what's changed, and if they still are in the running. I guess that I can rescore it. I guess rescore those three at that point.
Okay.
But no, I did not read it the way yours.
Okay. Yeah, then I mean, I think it sounds like we have our top three, and go from there.
Okay.
So we don't need a motion for Jason, correct? That's just an action item for him to reach out to get the clarification.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, I don't think we do. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're all
do
good.
that then. I should be able to get them that out today, and then hopefully hear back by the beginning of next week, and then from there we can I'll work with Natalie and stuff and Colleen and to get another board meeting scheduled, but I'll send out information before that so that everybody has time to digest it.
Okay. Fantastic.
Okay.
Okay.
Deal.
Any other thoughts or things we needed to discuss?
I just want to thank Jason for his work because I know he's been living with this for a couple, 3 months now.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. We're moving forward in a good way. Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
All right. If there's nothing else to come before the board, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, and thanks to Jason.
Second. Thanks, Mike.
All right. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 The motion has carried.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
Thanks.
Thanks. You too, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Care.
There it goes.